Ever think about what it would be like to, walk in the shoes of someone like J. Robert Oppenheimer,
Oh, yeah.
the father of the atomic bomb?
Yeah.
But his story goes way beyond that label.
Right.
We're diving deep today.
Okay.
To help us, we have insights from an interview with Kai Bird,
Mm-hmm.
who literally wrote the book on Oppenheimer
Wow.
and won a Pulitzer for it.
Wow. Impressive.
So get this, Oppenheimer wasn't just a science whiz.
Uh-huh.
He loved literature, poetry, philosophy. You wouldn't think those would make someone a better physicist.
That's the fascinating thing.
Yeah.
These interests actually helped shape his scientific thinking. Instead of just crunching numbers, he was asking big, unique questions,
Yeah.
That's how he was able to predict black holes in 1939,
Wow.
decades before anyone actually observed them.
That's mind-blowing.
It is.
And it seems like that inquisitive nature was there from the start. Apparently, as a kid, Oppenheimer would say things like, ask me a question in Latin, and I'll answer you in Greek.
A bit arrogant.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But it shows how much he reveled in knowledge and pushing boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this brings us to a complex chapter. Oppenheimer's involvement with the Communist Party in the 1930s.
Okay.
Back then, the party was pretty small,
Right.
but it was pushing for things like workers' rights and fighting racism.
Uh-huh.
These ideas appealed to a lot of intellectuals, including Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
But how deep did his involvement go?
Well, he definitely supported their causes financially.
Okay.
Think things like helping to desegregate a public swimming pool
Wow.
or sending aid during the Spanish Civil War.
Really?
But it's important to note that he was more of a sympathizer, not a card-carrying member.
Right. A distinction that will come back later in a big way.
Yeah.
But for now, the world is on the brink of war.
Mm.
We're in the early 1940s. World War II is raging.
Right.
And nuclear fission has just been discovered. Suddenly, there's this terrifying race to build an atomic bomb
Oh, wow.
before Nazi Germany does.
Right.
And this is where General Leslie Groves comes in,
Mm-hmm.
tasked with heading up this top-secret project,
Yeah.
the Manhattan Project.
Okay.
Now, you'd think he'd pick someone with tons of leadership experience to lead the scientists.
Makes sense, right.
Yeah.
Huge project, needs a steady hand.
Yeah.
Instead, he chooses Oppenheimer, a young academic.
Wow.
But what Oppenheimer had was this ability to explain incredibly complex science
Mm-hmm.
in a way that anyone could understand. Crucial for a project this massive.
So not just a brain,
Right.
but a communicator, too.
Yeah.
And it seems his love for New Mexico played a role, too.
Right, absolutely. Oppenheimer felt a deep connection to New Mexico.
Okay.
And that's a big reason why Los Alamos was chosen as the project's location.
Ah, okay.
It all comes together, his scientific passion and his love for this specific place.
Wow. So you've got this secret city in the New Mexico desert, this brilliant but relatively untested leader, and the fate of the world hanging in the balance.
It's a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
a lot riding on it.
But lurking in the background is this whole other issue, Soviet espionage.
Oh, right.
You have to remember, this is the height of World War II.
Uh-huh.
The U.S. and Soviet Union were allies,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of distrust.
Right.
And the stakes of the Manhattan Project were so high
Mm-hmm.
that spying was almost inevitable.
Exactly. And it wasn't just one person.
Okay.
Klaus Fuchs, a German physicist,
Right.
is the well-known case.
Yeah.
He passed information about the bomb to the Soviets,
Hmm.
but then you have Ted Hall, just 19 years old at the time,
Wow.
a Harvard physicist,
Okay.
who also gave the Soviets detailed information.
Really?
And there are whispers of even more spies at Los Alamos.
So how did the U.S. even try to keep this project secret?
Picture this.
Hmm.
Security clearances, oaths of secrecy, wiretaps everywhere.
Wow.
Even Oppenheimer's driver was an undercover counterintelligence officer.
Wow.
They were watching everyone.
That's intense.
It was.
Talk about pressure.
Yet despite all of that, the Soviets still got their hands on information.
Right.
It makes you wonder, could they have ever truly stopped the flow of information given what was at stake?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
All of this leads us to July 16th, 1945,
Hmm.
in the New Mexico desert.
Right.
Years of intense work, unimaginable pressure,
Hmm.
and it all culminates in a flash.
Yeah.
The Trinity test.
Okay.
The atomic age is born.
Wow.
What must it have been like to witness that?
Imagine the mix of emotions for the scientists there.
Yeah.
The thrill of success, but also this growing fear of the power they had unleashed.
No.
Weeks before the bombs were dropped on Japan,
Huh.
Oppenheimer was walking to work muttering, "Those poor little people, those poor little
He
kids."
knew the impact this would have.
His secretary asked him what he meant,
Oh, really?
and he said, "And now it's going to be used on a whole Japanese city. The victims are going to be women and children and old men."
Wow.
This is while he's briefing the pilots on how to maximize the destructive power of the bombs over Hiroshima.
He's caught in this incredible moral dilemma, pushing science forward, but also realizing the human cost.
And that burden took its toll. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Oppenheimer fell into a deep depression, really struggling with what he had been a part of.
So he achieves this monumental scientific breakthrough, leads this incredibly complex project, but then has to grapple with the consequences of his actions.
Right.
It's a lot to carry.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, his story doesn't end there. Things are going to take an even darker turn in the coming years.
We'll dive into that in part 2. See you soon.
See them.
Welcome back. Last time, we left off with Oppenheimer facing the weight of his involvement in the Manhattan Project. But as we're about to see,
Yeah.
things are going to get even more complicated for him.
What we're about to unpack is a really dark chapter, not just for Oppenheimer, but for America in general.
Yeah.
The 1954 Atomic Energy Commission hearing. Remember, it's the peak of McCarthyism.
Right.
There's this widespread paranoia about communist infiltration.
And Oppenheimer, with his, past ties to the Communist Party, becomes a target.
It really was like something out of a movie. Imagine this, a hearing designed to tear down his reputation, to discredit him publicly.
Wow.
Byrd even calls it a kangaroo court.
Okay.
Basically a trial that's rigged from the start.
Okay, so what were the accusations? I mean, it was about more than just his past involvement with the Communist Party, right?
You're right. They went after him for everything. His opposition to the hydrogen bomb, his political activities from years ago, even his personal life.
Wow.
They scrutinized his conversations, his letters, even his marriage. It's almost unbelievable, the level of intrusion.
So they were digging up everything they could find.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, his own lawyer wasn't allowed to see crucial evidence, including thousands of pages of FBI transcripts. Basically, they wanted to make sure he couldn't properly defend himself.
Wait, so Oppenheimer spent years advocating for international control of nuclear weapons, warning about the dangers of an arms race, and they turned around and called him a security risk.
You hit the nail on the head. It was a complete reversal of his stance and a blatant attempt to discredit him.
Wow.
One example that stands out is his friendship with Hakan Chevalier,
Yeah, okay.
a Berkeley professor. Back in 1943, Chevalier approached Oppenheimer about passing information to the Soviets.
Did he do it?
No, Oppenheimer was horrified and immediately reported the incident to security officials.
Oh, okay.
But years later, during the hearing, they twist the story, accusing him of being evasive about the details
Wow.
and delaying his report.
It's like
It's a perfect example of how fear and suspicion can distort the truth.
it sounds like they took this one incident and blew it way out of proportion.
You're right. It became this tangled mess of accusations and counter-accusations, with Oppenheimer's every word twisted to fit their narrative.
Yeah.
He was grilled for weeks, publicly humiliated.
So what was the outcome of this hearing?
They revoked his security clearance, ending his career in government.
Wow.
It wasn't just a personal blow for Oppenheimer, it sent shockwaves through the scientific community.
Right.
Imagine the chilling effect this had. Suddenly, scientists were afraid to speak their minds, afraid to engage in political debates.
So they basically silenced him and also created this atmosphere of fear that impacted other scientists.
Yeah.
Did anything good come out of the situation?
Actually, yes. Byrd and his co-author spent years meticulously researching and writing about the hearing. They weren't just chronicling the events, they were fighting to clear Oppenheimer's name,
Okay.
to expose the injustice of it all.
And did they succeed?
They absolutely did. In December of 2022, after years of advocacy, the U.S. Secretary of Energy formally nullified that 1954 verdict.
That's amazing.
It was a huge victory, finally acknowledging that Oppenheimer was treated unfairly.
It gives you hope that even when things seem bleak, truth can prevail. So we've explored the darkest moments of Oppenheimer's story, the betrayal, the political machinations that brought him down. But what about his life afterward?
That's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Oppenheimer's journey to find solace, purpose, and a sense of redemption.
Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground with Oppenheimer, from his incredible scientific mind to his leadership during the Manhattan Project
Yeah,
and the political attacks that followed. It's been a roller coaster, right?
absolutely. But his story doesn't end with that security hearing.
Right.
Even though he lost his security clearance and his voice in government, he found ways to move forward.
So what did he do? Did he just disappear from public life?
He retreated from the spotlight,
Okay.
seeking solace in a place he truly loved, the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
Remember how he wanted to combine his love for science with his love for New Mexico? Well, St. John became his new sanctuary.
It sounds like he needed to get away from the pressure and scrutiny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He built a simple cabin on the beach, embracing a quieter life.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost imagine him trying to shed the weight of history and reconnect with the beauty of nature.
But even in a place like that, could he truly escape the legacy of the atomic bomb?
It's hard to say. In 1960, he traveled to Japan for a scientific conference.
Okay.
He didn't visit Hiroshima or Nagasaki,
Right.
but the questions followed him. Japanese reporters pressed him about his feelings on the bombings.
That must have been intense. What did he say?
His response was classic Oppenheimer. All I can say is that I haven't slept worse or better last night than I did the night before.
Wow, that's cryptic. What do you think he meant?
It's hard to know for sure. It could be remorse, defiance, maybe even resignation.
Yeah.
But it shows the complexity of his character. Even decades later, we're still trying to figure him out.
So even though he was grappling with these moral questions, he never stopped engaging with science. Right.
You're right. He continued lecturing, writing, mentoring younger scientists.
Okay.
He remained a prominent figure in physics.
It's almost like his exile gave him a new kind of freedom.
Yeah.
He was no longer bound by government restrictions.
Right.
So he could speak more openly about the dangers of nuclear weapons and the need for disarmament.
He became this voice of conscience, reminding everyone that scientific progress needs ethical boundaries. And as the years went by, people began to recognize the injustices he had suffered.
Right.
Scientists, politicians, the public,
Yeah.
they all started to reevaluate his legacy.
And that ultimately led to the 2022 decision to clear his name.
Yes, that was a huge moment. It officially recognized that he was unfairly targeted and that his contributions to science and the country were significant.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Oppenheimer's life,
Oh.
what are the biggest takeaways? What can we learn from his story?
I think there are a few key things to consider. First, even the most brilliant minds are not immune to political pressures. Oppenheimer's story shows how ideology and fear can distort truth and lead to terrible injustices.
It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant and protect those who speak truth to power.
Absolutely. And second, Oppenheimer's story shows incredible resilience. He faced so much adversity, but he found ways to find meaning and purpose even after his downfall. He never stopped learning, debating, challenging conventional thinking.
It's inspiring, actually. And finally, I think his story highlights the importance of ethics in science.
Yes, Oppenheimer wrestled with the moral implications of his work throughout his life.
Right?
His story is a cautionary tale. It reminds us that scientific advancements need to be guided by ethical considerations. Knowledge without conscience can be dangerous.
Well said. As we leave you to ponder the complexities of Oppenheimer's life, we encourage you to explore this topic further.
Yeah.
Check out the sources we mentioned, read Bird's biography, maybe even watch the movie about him. Keep the conversation going. Remember, history isn't just dates and facts. It's full of human stories, triumphs, and tragedies. It's up to us to learn from the past and create a future where knowledge is used wisely and ethically.
I agree.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.